Hello and welcome to the final video in the Judge Less movement video series. This week is really about answering some questions that you've had along the way that you've either filled in your surveys or have messaged me about. Obviously, this is the beginning of something. My intention is that this is the beginning of your awareness of the heaviness of judgment, the harshness of judgment, and that it keeps you stuck in things. And that, and also, my intention all along has been that you just embrace that aspect of yourself as a normal human aspect of you. It's going to come along with the experience. It's not going anywhere, particularly while you judge it. So be aware that we're all doing it, but raise your awareness and your responsibility in kind of accepting that it's a human aspect of you, but also in being able to release it and move beyond it. So there's been a bit of a theme in a lot of the feedback where quite a number of you have just wanted more information about fear in general. So fear and expectations were two of the things that came up a lot. How do I describe fear in a small, nice, neat package for you? Fear is the opposite of love. In its simplest sense, fear is what you experience, what comes up for you in the absence of love, or in the absence of you being connected to love. Now, in a sense, you're always connected to love, but sometimes you might not feel it. You're not aware of it. You're not allowing that. Fear, I often talk about ego, and that really is, it's a concept of fear. It's a construct that is exactly the same really as fear. What fear in general does is it contracts us. When we feel fear, we become limited in our understanding, in our perspective. All the creativity goes in terms of our problem solving. We're not open in hearing other people necessarily and what they're really saying. We start to get really limited, stuck in old belief patterns that aren't working for us. In our bodies, fear is very limiting. It kind of stops the flow of things, stops you being able to kind of see clearly, hear clearly, and think clearly. So it's always going to limit you. This lifetime really is you getting more familiar with fear and just recognizing when it's there. And so the things that you might ideally put in place when you recognize that it's there is you might ask yourself questions like, what am I really frightened of here? Because the thing with fear is that it often comes presenting itself as something different to what we're really frightened of. So what am I really frightened of here? Why am I feeling blocked off from love here? What can I learn from this? How can I open up in this situation? Now, they mightn't be things you can ask right in the moment. They might be things you ask a year later. They might be things you ask 10 years later. It doesn't matter. From the minute you ask it, you're broadening, you're extending, you're opening yourself up. And that's the whole point of those questions. The antidote kind of to fear is love. And so if fear is blocked off, enclosed, making you smaller, love, of course, is open, flowing, and expanding you. I've talked about in this series that we can look at ego as a teaching tool. So we can look at ego as kind of that aspect of you that's kind of the keeper of your fear. It's the part of you that, yes, sometimes it's there for safety, it's there for, making good decisions about what might put you in danger, but most of the time it's the keeper of your limitations. It's the keeper of old belief systems and things that really don't apply anymore. So make friends with it, accept it, and know that it's coming along for the ride, and start recognizing when it's coming into play, and then just say, okay, what's here for me to learn? Why am I frightened of this? Why am I closed off to this possibility? It is definitely a whole series in and of itself, but I hope that makes you a little bit more understanding of fear. The extent to which you feel fear, let me rephrase that. The fact that you feel fear is normal. It's normal, it's human, it's not a flaw. It doesn't differentiate you from the rest of the human race. In fact, it unites us all in the fact that we all are having that while we're having a human experience. We all feel fear. The extent that you nourish that fear, nurture that fear, and let that fear rule you is something that is different in each one of us. But that's also it's quite natural to let that fear rule you as you get older. We get taught to let fear rule us. Society feeds us a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear that you'll get fed in the media, through different things, through politics, through economics, through all sorts of things. You'll get fed a lot of fear. Become responsible for what you do with that fear, and that is definitely something that can do a whole another series on, or do more information about. And just a note on expectations. Expectations is one of those things that you often will read memes on Facebook, or you'll hear different quotes about, if you don't expect things, you won't get hurt, or don't have high expectations. I wholeheartedly disagree with that. I've always been from the complete opposite end of that. My expectations are always extraordinarily high. I feel they should be the highest at all times, because what you expect is what you receive. Within that, my expectations are not necessarily of my human aspect or of somebody else's human aspect. So it's more my expectations of life, my expectations of source, my expectations of our ability to transcend are always very high. So that's something that expectations, I don't feel should be managed. I feel expectations is, if I get up in the morning and I expect that everything will work out, and I expect that the best will come to me, that's different to what I then do with what comes to me. What then comes to me, I then activate trust, and I think, well, I know that only the best comes to me, so let me now act accordingly. It's a little bit different. I hope you understand what I mean there. One of the other questions was, I'd like to know more about how to accept where I am. Acceptance is key, because when you're not accepting, you're rejecting. And rejecting something takes a lot of energy, and a lot of focus is then directed at the very thing you don't want. I know that can feel really counterintuitive. Like say, for example, you're physically unwell and you think, well, but if I accept that I'm physically unwell, isn't that telling the universe that I'm okay with it and that I can stay in this state? Or if I don't have a lot of money and I want more money, if I accept my current income or my current debt, is that not saying to the universe, this is okay? No. Acceptance of what is actually the highest form of going with the flow. It actually opens you up more than any other thing to allowing that very thing to be different. Because when you're resisting, you close off, you narrow, you constrict. Your ideas close off, your ears close off, your ability to speak, your ability to take in information, your ability to look creatively, your ability to create, all narrows, all constricts, and of course with rejection comes a lot of fear. With acceptance of where I am, I open up, I go with the flow, I get more creative. I expand in my ideas. I start to listen out for things. I start to out for opportunities. So if I'm ill, what I can do is I can really accept and be in the moment. I can start to affirm to myself, I accept that my body is doing right now what my body needs to do. I accept that right now I rest. I allow. Maybe start to put together whenever you say, I accept where I am and I allow things to shift. I accept that right in this moment I am physically unwell and I allow myself to heal. I accept that my income right now is this much and I allow it to expand. So just really start to understand what you reject, you kind of really hold in your energetic kind of pattern. You're so focused on it. You're so busy pushing it away that you close yourself completely off to new coming to you. You've closed yourself off as a receiver when you reject. When you accept, you open yourself up. Maybe start to think of it in terms of your hands. You know, when you reject something, you're closed off. When you accept it, you open yourself up, which means new things can come to you. How can we extend compassion to others and have less judgment if we cannot see any similarities? There are always similarities. Go as far back on the spectrum with that as you need to. So start with we're both human. We're both people on the planet. We both have arms. We both have legs. We both have feelings. And then keep bringing it into closer to you. Say if it's a female, we're both women. We're both men. We're both parents. And then in that video, where the question came from, that was from week 3 about extending non-judgment to the other. It was about recognizing the similarities in us all and about recognizing that if our behavior is driven from fear, it's recognizing that someone is fearful. Recognizing that they're fearful and then remembering and bringing to yourself, I'm often fearful. You know, I know what that feels like, so that their behavior, what they do with that fear might be different, but I know what that feels like. It's ego that doesn't want you to see the similarities, and in fact, it's actually a sign for you on how active ego is if you absolutely cannot find any similarities. The more similarities you find, it's actually the more connected you know that you are to love. Because, of course, love, whatever you want to call that, call it love, call it source, call it God, call it Mother Earth, call it the universe, call it your great-grandmother, call it the pineapple. I really could not care less what you call it. Whatever it is that you call that thing that we are all talking about, but we like to call by different names because we call it whatever resonates with us. The more connected you are with that thing, the more you will see that sameness and the more you will see that energy flowing through each one of us. And you will recognize, like I was talking about with the fear, that we are either in love, in flow, we are either connected to source, or we're disconnected and we're in fear. So if you can also remind yourself that person's really disconnected right now. I know one of the quotes I sent out was that, you know, when behavior is motivated by fear, any kind of crazy can happen. So if you're seeing that from other people, remind yourself they're frightened. I'm often frightened. I know what that feels like. I might not make those choices, but I've been in crazy town myself at times. We all have. There's no one on the planet. Some people live in crazy town with their reactions, but we've all visited. So another question is, what is the best way to cope with a work colleague that is always acting out of fear? Great that they're a work colleague because there's a lot of options and choices there. They are that little bit removed. But look to them as a guide. Look to them as, firstly, what can often happen with people that are acting out of fear is they activate your fear. And then your fear or your ego tells you, if they weren't like that, I wouldn't be like this. Wayne Dyer has a brilliant story that he often used to tell. If you know of Wayne Dyer, I'm sure you know the story about the orange, but I'll share it anyway for those of you that haven't heard it. When he used to speak, he used to have an orange with him on the stage, and he would ask people, what do I get when I squeeze this? And of course, everybody said, orange juice. And he would say, can I get lemon juice from it? No. Can I get water from it? No. Can I get whatever? No. You can only, if you squeeze an orange, you can only get orange juice. And his whole message from that, the meaning of that story is that you cannot get something from something that is not there. When you're squeezed, like the work colleague that is always in fear is squeezing you, what comes out of you is still you. It's yours. It's not theirs. We can't say, well, normally I'm really calm and relaxed, but when fearful people are around me, I get into that fear. That's still your fear. If you need things to be a certain way, for you to be a certain way, you aren't really that way. If you need people to be really positive and calm and trusting and connected in order for you to be positive, calm, trusting and connected, it's not real. Because the minute you have had that taken from you, you're being squeezed. What's coming out of you now? So whatever this person activates in you, be it anger, be it resentment, whatever it is that you feel when they're in fear, is the thing in you that's showing up to be healed. That's where they're your teacher. That's where they're a gift to you by showing you. And you can activate kindness and compassion to them, non-judgment to them, by reminding yourself, when am I fearful? What do I do when I'm fearful? What is it that I want when I'm fearful? When I'm fearful, I probably don't want people saying to me, well, stop it, it's ridiculous. I probably want people to bring love. So fearful people, they're missing love. Bring the love. And obviously too, some self-care, like you might not want to hang with this work colleague too much. You might want to limit your time that you spend with them. But when you are with them, the thing is, here's the thing. You set up this feedback where every time you think of them, you might get resentment and you might feel quite negative. That gets sent ahead of them. Doesn't get sent ahead of them. That gets sent to the situation. And when you're in the situation, that's already there for you to pick up too. So sometimes you're not just feeling what they've left. Sometimes you're feeling what you've sent ahead. I hope that makes sense. So let's call this person Michelle, and you work with Michelle, and Michelle activates something in you. So every time you think of Michelle, let's, for example, say you feel, like tense and stressful. That's been sent ahead, but that's actually your tense and stressfulness that you then think, because you feel it every time you see Michelle, you think it's Michelle. And it's not necessarily. It's something is being activated in you, and it's actually a gift for you and an opportunity for you to then sort that and deal with that and actually calm that in yourself. And the last question is how to not take things so personally. Well, that's a big one too, really. But here's the thing. In your life, everything is about you and everything is for you. But when you're interacting with other people, there's what's for you and there's what's theirs. So if somebody is being disrespectful to you, if somebody's being rude to you, that is about them. Their behaviour is about them. Their behaviour is a reflection of them. The extent that you respond to it is a reflection of you. So somebody can come to you and go, here's a plate of shit. And to the extent that you take the plate of shit and say, thank you, I'll carry that now, it shows you what is yours. So somebody comes to you, somebody is rude to you. Let's say, for example, you're in the supermarket and I was going to say the lady that's doing your groceries, but most of the time that's us now. But let's say can't even think of what they're called. So let's go somewhere else. Let's go to the chemist. And the server there is rude to you. And you leave and you think, she was so rude. She was so rude. Why was she so rude to me? That has absolutely nothing to do with you. But if you carry that and you take it on and you're annoyed in the car on the way home, and then you tell your friend when you get home how rude the lady was, and then a week later you remember it and it aggravates you, that's yours now. That's now where you're carrying it. You've now taken that on, and there's something there for you that's for you to figure out. That's now your stuff. But there's nothing personal about that person being like that to you. So remind yourself, even if it's a family member, sometimes people get heartbroken by people's behavior to them, people's actions to them. You know what? The life that you're having right now, somebody else could be playing that role. The role of Sabine could be played by somebody else right now, and all the people that have said various things to me, done various things to me, would still do the same thing because it's them doing it. It's not about me. To the extent that I get into it with them, that's about me. To the extent that I carry it and I let it weigh me down, I let it affect me, that's about me. To the extent that I let it build me up and expand me and learn from, that's about me. To the extent that I let it write on my self-worth, that's about me. So if it helps, and if it's a particular thing that you feel like you're having trouble moving through, write it down. Write down what the person said. Write down what the person did. Write down what they've come to you, what they did, and then put a line across the page. And then write underneath, and here's what I say to myself about this. And here's what it activates in me. Write those two statements down, write those two sentences down, and then fill in what comes. Because that's really going to give you your gold. I often talk with clients and I say, look, experiences, people, different things, they're all gifts. But what fear does, what ego does, is it puts a great big black drape over the gift. So think of it like a gold platter with jewels on it. That's what we're given each and every time we have an experience, each and every time we interact with somebody every day of our lives. What ego and fear does, or they're both one and the same, put a big black drape over it so you can't see the gifts, and so it just looks like heavy sludge. So you feel like people are coming and just heaping crap on you and heaping heaviness onto you and heaping their rudeness, their fear, their whatever on you, or life is doing that, experiences are doing that. But if you can lift the cloud, if you can lift that heavy drape, then you see the gifts that are underneath and you start to activate and fully take responsibility. What am I learning here? Again, key. That doesn't mean that you just walk away and say, thank you for the gift. There's a way to deal with that. I mean, this keeps coming up, so I feel like we'll do some work on this. But for now, remember this. Other people's behaviour is always about them. What I do with it, the extent to which I respond, the extent to which it activates something in me. So if we go back to the example of the work colleague that's always fearful, the extent to which that work colleague is fearful is about them. The extent to which it activates my own fear, my own resentment of them, my own aggression towards them or whatever, that is about me. That is then my stuff. Okay, thank you for being here. I hope that has brought more clarity and more insight. I've loved doing these videos. I've loved the whole topic. I definitely feel like we're going to do something with it. I'm not sure what. I feel like each video could be expanded on, particularly the judging yourself less and judging humanity less. Again, thank you for being here. I will send out one final survey just asking you for feedback overall on the whole experience. I'd love to know what you've learned, what you've taken home, and again, what you want to know more of, so that I know what I can do with it to help expand it and to help bring more clarity. Okay, keep feeding back and take care.